Hello again. Welcome to another installment of, that Bookish Bermudian with your host, Stephen. It's the 1st of March, and if you watched my video yesterday where I talked about my Star Trek collection of novels, I mentioned at the end of that video that I was really looking forward to reading a book called Pilgrims. It's the debut novel by somebody named M.R. Leonard, and it's a Catholic themed novel about a drunken, out of work Latin teacher whose only aspiration is to die in the arms of a prostitute. He thinks that death is imminent because aliens have appeared in the solar system. Civilization has more or less collapsed in the preceding 5 years since their progress toward Earth had been detected, yet they'd made no attempt to contact us, and the world had succumbed to a kind of dystopian government where people were preparing to be annihilated. But what governments felt was the best thing to do was to, one, assume that they were going to be faced with overwhelming technological superiority, and that in order to try to balance the scales in what is acknowledged to be more or less futile would be to encourage as many countries as possible to actually stockpile nuclear weapons, and to try to make it appear that it would just be a bad idea, that they would have to sort of wipe out the whole world rather than just focus on the nukes in one country, say America or something. Recognizing that their chances of survival against this alien force is basically zero, but that's what they were doing. So you cue in this our lead character. His name is Austin. He's a really sad sot. Like he's not just a drunk, but he's a real incel. He's desperate for a woman. And throughout the novel, he looks at whatever woman even looks at him for a second. So there are. Let me say this about the book. There's an element of unreliable narrator about him, but if you're a discerning reader, you realize that he's not actually an unreliable narrator. He's a flawed narrator who's about to go on a redemption arc, but the redemption doesn't seem to be playing out very quickly. And anyway, so the aliens arrive, but lo and behold, the reason why they haven't revealed themselves is because they're Catholics, and they have their own reasons for doing so. Now, look, I don't want to give any more spoilers than that. I haven't really given any spoilers. It's more or less just what's on the back of the book. I will say it kind of goes through the numbers a little bit as to setting things up, but even if some bits were you could see, okay, that needs to happen before this happens. I always found that the novel was surprising me with something new and interesting. I liked how it described the dystopian world. I liked how what it really made me think of is I understand now why governments do not disclose it, like assuming that there is something to this whole idea that the government knows about the presence of whether they're extraterrestrials or intelligent non-human entities and all this sort of stuff, which apparently is all coming out. This frustrating misinformation breadcrumb approach to disclosure happening. I really understand why people like the government would be loath to do it, because it is a dystopian future, and the way he describes it, all very quickly, it's all very fast paced. It's been compared in tone to Red Rising, and I could see where that how that comparison is apt. I haven't read all of Red Rising. I just started it. I actually prefer this because Red Rising is that's just a total Marxist rebellion, Luciferian type worldview at play, and I understand why it's so popular as a result. Whereas this is a thoroughly Catholic novel. You really don't know what the agenda of the aliens are. There's predictably the general who doesn't trust them. Then there's the good-hearted priest. There's all kinds of characters that you might recognize as tropes. However, I found this to be a very unpredictable novel, and I will say that it provided a in the third act. There's a moral dilemma that got me so angry with how they handled it. I almost threw the book down. It involves well, let's just say it involved a group that I don't want to say anything without spoiling anything. Okay, I won't. It just a decision was taken, or an indignation was espoused that I just thought. I thought, you know what, this Catholic stuff. It's just that's just unreasonable. However, I plowed on, and he tied it up very well. Put it this way, there were different moral viewpoints at odds here, and it all came to me, an extremely moving and extremely satisfying conclusion. And look, I read the whole thing in one day. So if that's not an endorsement, I don't know what is. It's 330 odd pages. Oh, no, it's 400 pages. Sorry. And yes, it's like it reads like a Dan Brown novel in terms of punchy, easy to read. Certainly, if I were on a flight back from, say, London to Bermuda, I say London to Bermuda because I would have slept if I was going the other way. But if I was traveling back in time during the day, I certainly would read Pilgrims instead of watching any of the in-flight films. I highly recommend it. I mean, even though there's a tiny bit of violence, but it's all necessary to the plot. Nothing gratuitous at all. The descriptions, at least of lust, are very Catholic and vanilla, and quite well, in the effort to avoid salaciousness, it just makes the character appear more pathetic than maybe he would otherwise be in the hands of a writer that was allowed to be a little more graphic. But on the other hand, no, maybe that was the intention all along. I got the impression that I was like, man, this guy is just an incel. But as we get to know him more, and you see, I was getting so mad at the main character a lot, and then when I start to see, okay, there was a point to all that. It wasn't a weakness in the characterization. There was a real intentionality there to arrive at a greater point. I mean, the clue's right on the back cover when it's a sci-fi retelling of Augustine's Confessions. So there's no spoiler here to say, look, this is a Catholic novel, so there's going to be a redemption arc. There's going to be a Catholic themes. There's going to be a conclusion that. Well, don't assume it's happily ever after. That's all I'll say. But certainly, yeah. I don't want to spoil anything. The less you know about it, the better. I was really happy with just this. What would I give this out of? Well, not stars. I'll give it a rating. I'll give this for a first novel. I'm gonna give this an A-. If it were a second novel, I'd still give it an A-. Right? If you like Catholicism, you're gonna love this book. If you like extraterrestrials, you're gonna love this book. If you like Dan Brown blockbustery type books and aren't gonna win any prizes for literature but are cracking good reads, you'll love this book. So it gets A- for all those things. Why not a full A? Just because I'm a hard marker, I suppose. I'm not that hard. So well done, whoever you are, M.R. Leonard. I could just say Mr. Leonard. But go out and get this book. It's his first novel, and I think you'll really enjoy it. There's a great story in there, and there are great messages. It's as being a Catholic novel, it's got the obligatory moments of philosophizing and whatnot, but that doesn't ever feel like that it's been shoehorned in inappropriately. There's a real sort of Father Elijah vibe. If any of you have read, oh my goodness, Michael O'Brien's novels, and it's good at dropping those tidbits in there without feeling forced. So go for it. Great book. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Read it on a wonderful Sunday where I'd been to church, I'd been to the gym, I'd had a wonderful coffee with a dear friend of mine, and then I just read this book. It was a rainy day, total rainy day afternoon, perfect excuse to sort of do nothing. Just had the dog lying on the couch and home alone, and just sat there and read and read and read. And boy, it's now 9/11, yeah, I'm a very happy reader. So God bless until the next time.